steer straight, thou must upright dost weigh the path of the just day and way of thy judgments. Yahweh, we have waited for thee. The longing of our soul is to thy name and to the remembrance of thee. With my soul have I desired thee in the night. Yea, with my spirit within me I will seek thee early. For when thy judgments are in the earth, the inhabitants of the world will learn righteousness.
A favor be shown to the wicked, yes, he will not learn righteousness in the land of the...
Hello, good day. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing Job chapter 4. Job is in the midst of his reply. And this last verse of Job chapter 13 really, I think, belongs with the next chapter. And in fact, and just because in Hebrew sometimes they say things in a little different order than we do, it would make a lot of sense if it actually came after that. It's just they talk different. Sometimes their sentences are completely backwards. I mean, literally, they even write in the other direction. But just listen how it sounds like this. Man that is born of woman is of few days, and full of trouble. And he, as a rotting thing, consumeth, as a garment that is moth-eaten. That's very standard biblical wisdom. But we could leave it up here and say it like this. We'd have to interject a little text, like, and he, as a rotten thing, consumeth, as a garment that is moth-eaten, so is man that is born of woman, who is of a few days and full of trouble. So, continuing with verse 2. He cometh forth like a flower, and is cut down. He fleeth also as a shadow, and continueth not. And dost thou open thine eyes upon such an one, and bringest me into judgment with thee? Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? Not one. Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bonds, that he cannot pass. Turn from him, that he may rest, till he shall accomplish as an hireling his day. For there is hope of a tree, if it be cut down, that it will sprout again, and that the tender branch thereof will not cease. Though the root thereof wax old in the earth, and the stock thereof die in the ground, yet through the scent of water it will bud, and bring forth boughs like a plant. But man dieth, and wasteth away. Yea, man giveth up the ghost, and where is he? As the waters fail from the sea, and the flood decayeth and drieth up, so man lieth down, and riseth not, till the heavens be no more. They shall not awake, nor be raised out of their sleep. Oh, that thou wouldest hide me in the grave, that thou wouldest keep me in secret until thy wrath be past, that thou wouldest appoint me a set time, and remember me. If a man die, shall he live again? All the days of my appointed time will I wait till my change come. Thou shalt call, and I will answer thee. Thou wilt have a desire to the work of thine hands. For now thou numberest my steps. Dost thou not watch over my sin? My transgression is sealed up in a bag, and thou sewest up mine iniquity. And surely the mountain failing cometh to naught. I'm sorry. I think I read it the same way last time. And surely the mountain falling cometh to naught, and the rock is removed out of his place. The waters wear the stones. Thou washest away the things which grow out of the dust of the earth, and thou destroyest the hope of man. Thou prevailest forever against him, and he passeth. Thou changest his countenance, and sendest him away. His sons come to honor, and he knoweth it not. They are brought low, but he perceiveth it not of them. But his flesh upon him shall have pain, and his soul within him shall mourn. Let's read the next chapter, even though I don't think we're going to get there. I've been waiting to hear what Eliphaz had to say again. Then answered Eliphaz the Temanite, and said, Should a wise man utter vain knowledge, and fill his belly with the east wind? Should he reason with unprofitable talk, or with speeches wherewith he can do no good? Yea, thou castest off fear, and restrainest prayer before God. For thy mouth uttereth thine iniquity, and thou choosest the tongue of the crafty. Thine own mouth condemneth thee, and not I. Yea, thine own lips testify against thee. Art thou the first man that was born? Or wast thou made before the hills? Hast thou heard the secret of God? And dost thou restrain wisdom to thyself? What knowest thou that we know not? What understandest thou which is not in us? With us are both grey-headed and very aged men, much elder than thy father. And the consolations of God... Are the consolations of God small with thee? Is there any secret thing with thee? Why doth thine heart carry thee away? And what do thy eyes wink at? That thou turnest thy spirit against God, and lettest such words go out of thy mouth? What is man that he should be clean? And he which is born of a woman, that he should be righteous. Behold, he putteth no trust in his saints. Yea, the heavens are not clean in his sight. How much more abominable and filthy is man, which drinketh iniquity like water? I will show thee, hear me, and that which I have seen I will declare. Which wise men have told from their fathers, and have not hid it? Unto whom alone the earth was given, and no stranger passeth among them. The wicked man travelleth with pain all his days, and the number of years is hidden to the oppressor. A dreadful sound is in his ears. In prosperity the destroyer shall come upon him. He believeth not that he shall return out of darkness, and he is waited for of the sword. He wandereth abroad for bread, saying, Where is it? He knoweth that the day of darkness is ready at his hand. Trouble and anguish shall make him afraid. They shall prevail against him, as a king ready to battle. For he stretcheth out his hand against God, and strengtheneth himself against the Almighty. He runneth upon him, even on his rock, upon the thick bosses of his bucklers, because he covereth his face with his fatness, and maketh collops of fat on his flanks. And he dwelleth in the desolate cities, and in houses which no man inhabiteth, which are ready to become heaps. He shall not be rich, neither shall his substance continue, neither shall he prolong the perfection thereof upon the earth. He shall not depart out of darkness. The flame shall dry up his branches, and by the breath of his mouth shall he go away. Let not him that is deceived trust in vanity, for vanity shall be his recompense. It shall be accomplished before his time, and his branch shall not be green. He shall shake off his unripe grape as the vine, and shall cast off his flower as the olive. For the congregation of hypocrites shall be desolate, and fire shall consume the tabernacles of bribery. They conceive mischief, and bring forth vanity, and their belly prepareth deceit. I'm going to get more of Job in there. I just want to see really quick. Is that the end of Eliphaz's? No, then Job answers. Well, we'll be looking into that more as the week goes on. I'll just drop in chapter 16, because tomorrow we'll definitely be reading that. Let's go back to 14. Very interesting passage. He expresses his doubt about the resurrection. You know, it's not unusual to doubt the resurrection. The Apostle Thomas, who walked with Jesus, who saw Jesus perform miracles, who participated in many of those miracles, who cast out devils in the name of Jesus and marveled at the way that the spirits obeyed. You know, things that you would think, if I walked with Jesus and I saw him walk on the water, if I was there when he was breaking the bread, I would believe. Yeah, until you watch the Romans come grab him, or the temple guards come and grab him and then hand it over to the Romans and crucified. It has a way of ruining your faith when you see the realities of life come crashing down. Life and death. You know, like justice in the world, sometimes, a little bit here, a little bit there. It's not so unjust as to be unbearable. It can feel unbearable, but many bear it. And I understand in many individual cases it gets so unbearable or perceived as unbearable because a lot has to do with our perceptions. You know, I mean, consider that advanced societies, Western societies, many of them are the ones that lead the world in suicide. Not the countries that are riddled with poverty and people living in squalor. They're too busy trying to survive to think about killing themselves. It's people who sit around and have nothing better to do. Or, obviously, I know there's other reasons. Sometimes people become overloaded with the burdens of this life. I know about that. Job himself is wishing for death. So, you know, I mean, I that's the thing. It's like, and for him, it's the trouble of, that's come upon him, all the things he's lost. It's like, he just assumes that's what's next in part. And wishes for it because he's seen such evil and he just wants to close his eyes forever. I understand. Man, we are like we consume away. We get old, as a garment that is moth-eaten, we wear out. We get older. We have few days. In those days, they're full of trouble. You don't have to wait for the tribulation to have trouble in your life. I mean, if you've lived any kind of life, like I said, Western civilizations, a lot of times very rich ones, lead the world in suicides. It has something else. It's something else than just that. It's not just the struggle to survive. It's not just the trouble of life. Oftentimes it has to do with loneliness and relationships and things like that. Parts about life that leave you feeling empty, The kind of things, and like when you lose everything like Job, it can make life seem really empty too because you have all this fullness and then it's all gone and taken away. That can be especially hard to bear. I mean, compared to, some people, it's better to love and lose than to never have loved at all. I'm not so sure about that. You know what I mean? Just in that raw sense. I mean, from the perspective of the Lord in the resurrection, I was thinking it's better to have existed, but not to lose, but rather to only give up that which is not worth keeping, that we may gain that which is everlasting. Man that is born a woman is few days. Our lives are not very long. Live a life. I'm 51 now. Probably about halfway over, right? I mean, chances are. I try to live healthy, but, there's more than just health. There's time and circumstance. Things happen. Accidents happen. Trouble comes. Sometimes you got to lay your life down. And you don't just die. You get it like the Lord did and like his apostles did. Thomas didn't believe till he put his fingers into his wounds. Or he was so full of doubt, he's like, I won't believe until I put my finger in his wounds. And that kind of puts the whole argument about if you had proof, you wouldn't need faith. No, if you have proof, you'd have a lot of faith. You'd really be convinced. People don't understand faith. They just literally don't. I was always thinking when unbelievers try to explain to me about faith through whatever cockamamie religious ideas they got from some bizarre church that doesn't know what they're talking about. Like I said, the Church of England seem to have this thing that, if you had proof, then it wouldn't require faith. No, it just requires blind faith if you don't have proof. Blind faith? Even Jesus never asked anyone to have blind faith. He said, look, believe. Be not unbelieving, but see. Open, he that hath ears to hear and he that hath eyes to see, let him see. Let him hear. If you want to see it, open them up. Not that I can open up my own eyes, truthfully. But if your heart yearns to see, the Lord is already calling you. That's the truth. Full of trouble. He cometh forth like a flower. This is very common, makes me think of Isaiah. Cry, what shall I cry? The voice in the wilderness. All flesh is as grass, and the flower thereof is as the fading flower that fadeth away. That's not an exact quote. What was that, Isaiah 40 or 41? I'll read it. It's interesting because it's 41. Oh, wait, no, it's not. All right, Paul, which one was it? I guess I'll have to look it up. Maybe it was 45. That was the thing that actually stuck into my head. That's... maybe it's 39. I didn't go far enough. Let's see. All right. I know how to look this up. I will look it up under cry, flesh, grass. And if I search for all those words in the Old Testament, it's Isaiah 40. I just didn't keep reading. I was right from the beginning. There we go. Mostly just second guessing. It's interesting. Verse 3. Well, I'll start with verse 1. Comfort ye, my people, saith your God. Speak ye comfortably to Jerusalem, and cry unto her, that her warfare is accomplished, that her iniquity is pardoned. For she hath received of the Lord. She hath received of the Lord's hand double for all her sins. The voice of him that crieth in the wilderness, Prepare ye the way of the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough places plain, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. The voice said, Cry. And he said, What shall I cry? All flesh is grass, and all the goodliness thereof is as the flower of the field. The grass withereth, and the flower fadeth, because the Spirit of the Lord bloweth upon it. Surely the people is grass. The grass withereth, the flower fadeth, but the word of our God shall stand forever. O Zion, that bringest good tidings, get thee up to the high mountain, O Jerusalem, that bringest good tidings. Lift up thy voice with strength, lift it up, be not afraid. Say unto the cities of Judah, Behold your God. And that's kind of a look at the spirit in which John the Baptist came, because he was that voice of one crying in the wilderness. He directed people to this very idea. But what does it have to do with? It has to do with that same question Job is posing. He's like, look at, flesh is just grass, flesh and blood man. What is he? What is man? That thou art mindful of him. Psalm chapter 8. The 8th Psalm, really. It's not a chapter. What is man that thou art mindful of him, and the son of man that thou visitest him? You've made him a little lower than the Elohim, the angels, or whatever, the gods. We are lower than the heavenly beings. Of course, but there is the reason Jesus identified himself as the Son of Man has to do with that psalm. And the Son of Man that thou visitest him, for thou hast made him a little lower than the angels, and hast crowned him with glory and honor. Thou madest him to have dominion over the works of thy hands. It's talking about man in general. But Christ is that ultimate distillation of man's potential, and also the door through which man can enter into a relationship with God that results in everlasting life. And that is the beauty of it. And see, the point about this is that this question of like, man, what is man? Who cares about man? Well, does God care or not? And that's what Job is saying. Does God really care about us or not? He subjects us to this world that is at the same time hopeful and also full of despair. Yeah, sometimes the wicked get theirs. That's not untrue. But sometimes they get away with it, don't they? For years. Some crimes go unsolved. And there's got to be enough belief that can happen. I mean, it's up to us. Here's the thing. You don't like the evil in the world? You don't like the suffering in the world? Well, what did you do lately to alleviate it? Because you have godlike powers yourself. We all have our own limited capacity, but with what, we have the powers that God has to be compassionate, it's like to do what you can for those you can help. I think it's funny when wealthy unbelievers will, God this, God that. It's like, and they set them, and when they eliminate God, they immediately set themselves up as God. Except they don't go and do the job like they say they think it should be done, taking care of people in a way that is benevolent, but not necessarily paternalistic. God is our Father, but He isn't. Is He paternalistic? No, I think He's pretty light touch in many ways. In many ways, as far as being. Like I said, I've come to my relationship with God without Him having a heavy hand on, here I am. He's not like my earthly father. Like I can go talk to Him face to face as a man, even though I can attempt this, even though I don't get the same thing. But the thing is, the answers are all there in the Scripture, so you kind of do get the same thing. If you know the Bible, the answers are sort of there. It's like you know what the answer of God is because He's answered it already. Do we bother to go and look? Are we too busy thinking about how, if God isn't real, we can get away with our sins? Job isn't making that mistake. He hasn't made that mistake. But they accuse him. He's lamenting the brevity of man's life and his seemingly futile existence. What's the point of all this struggling? Everything has come to an end anyways. Even if my kids live on after me, they come to great success, I'll never know about it. They come to total destruction, I don't know about that either. At some point, I don't get to have any say about it. I can't control whether all my descendants are completely wiped out. He's already had that happen. But even if they hadn't been died, then it could have happened right after he died. And what's he got to say about it? What's the point of all this struggle? And God sent His only Son. Because there is a point to the struggle. Because there is a resurrection. There is an ultimate judgment. And what you do doesn't matter just for... Yes, there is a benefit temporarily on the earth to doing what's right in society. That's like the Jordan Peterson mentality. Do what's right. People will... You get a good reputation. And that's almost like God. It's like, yeah, it almost is, but it's not. Okay, God is the one who sees what you're doing when you lie about your reputation and you actually are clever enough and psychopathic enough to get away with it. There's this supposed to let him go and do it. I don't even, and what do I know about the suffering in the world? It's like, as far as like I said, we do what we can to alleviate the suffering. I'm just saying, if I'm someone complaining about it to God, my own suffering, it's okay to pour out your own complaint. My point is to reject God based on the fact that there is any suffering. Especially being at the end of the world, way beyond Job, and knowing how God Himself entered into flesh, became a man like unto us 100%, and then suffered unjustly and died and rose from the dead as an example to us of His willingness to suffer the things of this life in order for the greater glory to come. And because it's impossible to live this life without encountering some suffering. Your days are full of trouble. Nobody. That's why you see rich, famous people. They still, like I said, Robert Williams, he committed suicide. People, he's wealthy. He's got all this popularity. People, I don't know how popular he is, but many thousands and thousands of people admire and love the guy, right? But then he's not happy because it can be lonely. You can be surrounded with people and still feel yourself alone. It's very difficult. And we have compassion on people that feel that people often like to be harsh in their criticism. I mean, after the fact, it's like, hey, why speak ill of the dead? I'm not like superstitious about it. As far as like at some point you do, you're like, hey, I mean, all the figures in the Bible are dead, and sometimes we talk about them. Well, and the thing is, God is not the God of the dead, but of the living, right? But again, I look at that in terms of the promise. It's like He sees them as alive because God calls things that are not as though they already are. Because He's able to do that, He calls the entire existence out of nothing. So yeah, He does things we don't do or can't do. Man comes forth like a flower. We're like a plant. We just come up and we're delicate. Our life is very fleeting. People live and die, especially in the old ancient times. There's a lot more. I would say it's not like a lot more disease, but certainly anytime you have a breakdown in like things like where sanitation and stuff, and like or you're living in unsanitary conditions, unhealthy conditions, disease has a better grip on things. Ancient peoples had immune systems. We didn't. Otherwise, we would go extinct from all our vulnerability to all these diseases. People became vulnerable through circumstances and then succumbed to disease. That's as it always has been for the most part. Healthy animals and people tend to get less sick. When you're well fed and in good shape and getting all your input you need and all the output you require, the body's functioning properly. Most problems are going to be. That's why even the most destructive plagues of all time didn't kill everybody. It was like Black Plague. Half of the people died. Think about it, the other half of the people didn't. It's kind of terrifying in a sense, but also comforting. Like I said, it's like things are both. It can look hopeless, but also there's still hope. Otherwise, why would people even try? Why would like I said, if it's so unbearable for everybody, it's not. But there are many who suffer. And there are also many, maybe not as many, but many, and they have the means to alleviate much of that suffering. But they choose rather to continue to enrich themselves. And God is watching. I said I always just want to get by and stuff, and riches are uncertain and they're also treacherous. Job was handling his riches just fine, though, as far as we can tell. So man's life is just this brief thing, and do you open your eyes upon such a one, and brings me into judgment with thee? I'm not sure the connection of that to the flower per se. I just think it's interesting because this question of like man's fleeting life and our thing and all this, and what does what we do matter and all that. Christ came to answer that question. That he had, has he forsaken man? No, God has not forsaken us. Do you open your eyes on such a one? Who can bring forth a clean out of an unclean? Not one. That goes back to can bitter water and sweet flow out of the same fountain? This idea can things that are antithetically opposed. Out of the strong came forth sweet was the parable of Samson, or his riddle, if you will. But it was out of a lion came the honeycomb. But the strong and sweet are not diametrically opposed. You can't have sweet and strong in proximity to each other. You can't, but strong and weak, that, or partly weak and partly strong, that's a recipe for disaster. Because everyone knows that chain is only as strong as its weakest link. There's a lot of little bits of wisdom like that are handed down from ancient times. Can you bring a clean thing out of an unclean? No. Now, someone smarty pants will say, well, now we can have water treatment. Well, the point is, that's the point. You're bringing you cleaned it with cleaning things to make it clean. You didn't bring it out of unclean. You didn't pass it through more sewage. You know what I mean? Like, here, let's filter it through pig waste. That'll get the impurities out, right? No, you don't get clean out of unclean, right? If you have water that needs to be cleaned, you have to filter it through clean filters that clean it up and press out and filter and remove and purify. It's not that the unclean can't be purified. It's just the unclean doesn't produce cleanliness of itself. The unclean must be cleansed. I think he's just defying their judgment. That's why I'm going to judge about verse 3. He's just being defiant. It's like, how dare you judge me? How dare you look at me in my state, being a man like me? And it sort of implies like God's fear also, like all flesh is as grass. Man is just a small thing. You're going to judge me. You're going to, as another man, even stand and judge me with you and put us all in the same thing together. God is the judge, not some man. Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. Man's life is limited. Turn from him that he may rest till he shall accomplish as an hireling his day. This, I think, means turn from him. He's speaking of himself in the third person as the man. He is a man who is exemplifying this nature of human existence where it's like it comes and it goes. It's like a flower coming to bloom in the field. One day it's there, the next day it's trampled underfoot and dried up. It doesn't necessarily mean anything or reveal anything. It just comes and goes. Like grass in the field. I mean, look at all, you ever look outside of Herculaneum in Pompeii, especially Herculaneum, where they had those places where all the bodies were piled in, just all these hundreds of people fried by the volcano. Do you think they were greater sinners than the rest of the people? You don't think, they didn't know the risen Lord properly or what? It's like, I understand. The heathen don't know God. But even when they don't know God, when they, as Cornelius, feared God, whatever that means to God, fearing hey, I got to do what's right. Looking over your shoulder a little bit, just understanding that there is a judge. I don't live in fear of that because I have faith and I know him. But he's also merciful. He knows people. Like he says, when Jesus told us how he's going to judge. He's going to say to people, as much as you did it to the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. He cares very much how about we treat each other. That's quite clear. How you treat other people matters. Much more than what you claim to be allegiant to. Where you claim to pledge your allegiance to Jesus Christ and the crucifixion for which he stands. It's like, okay, well, how does that reveal itself in the way you live your life? We all have determined days. We all have a limited number of months and years. We can't go beyond it. It's just what God has written. I think it means in the sense of like, don't, turn from him, meaning turn away thy wrath. That's what he's experiencing. That's what he's talking about. For there's hope of a tree. If it be cut down, it will sprout again. That the tender branch will not cease. Though yet the root thereof wax old in the earth, and the stock die on the ground. Yet through the scent of water will it bud. I don't know if that's what he means or if it's a sort of a misconception about how agriculture worked. I'm sure they understood what they were talking about as far as like, you can make things rebud even though some trees can seem to be dead and come back. And I think that's what he's really talking about. It gets that water, or if it even gets the scent of it, because some of them have deep roots that really seek for it. And for people to say it's almost like it can smell the water. And the degree to which they can possibly detect through their leaves and sensitivity in some species, to that moisture. And they do have moisture sensing. They have all kinds of interesting things that plants do. So very complicated. So yeah, they can come back from the dead, so to speak. I think that's what he's talking. They can come back from the dead. He might mean life returning to life. He mean like how his life will be restored. But I think he's talking clearly about death. Like he says, but man dieth and wasteth away. He giveth up the ghost. And where is he? Where's he go? Where he gives up the ghost, okay? And then we bury the guy, and man is in his long home, as they say. And the ghost, who knows, like it says in Ecclesiastes, it returns to God who gave it. Like I said, notice the way they talk about it. They don't talk about giving up the body. You give up the ghost. Because the body is closely associated with the person. I don't know that the spirit is me without my body. Bodies seem to be necessary. It's like how without a body, how you see things. Or a brain, or something like it, some sort of functioning interface for that. How does the personality take shape without some sort of physical form? And even if it is, there's a spiritual form. Okay, that is a kind of a form. But the point is, it needs to take shape. And the nature of spirits is such that, it's like it's not entirely laid out like in some sort of, stereo instructions level of understanding. It will bring up boughs like a plant. Man dies and wastes away. Where is he? As the waters fail from the sea, and the flood decayeth and drieth up, so man lieth down and riseth not. Now again, I think people have trouble because it's like they believe the Bible. And then when we know the dead are going to rise, right? We believe that because Jesus died and rose again. But Job here is contradicting Jesus and the Bible contradicting itself. I mean, technically, right? But of course, Job is expressing sentiment. This is not meant to be like, doctrine, or certainly not for Christians. The prophet's promise of resurrection, and like I said, Job, we don't know exactly what time frame he lives in. If he's the Job that is described in the genealogies, which I don't know if that's reasonable or not, he would have lived in the time of Joshua. Or the judges or something like that. One of that, I believe it was maybe Joshua or the judges, but definitely before the kings. Though the level of understanding here and the poetic thing, I don't know exactly it would be interesting, someone who was expert in the textual stuff, but I'm not. So man lieth down, riseth not, till the heavens be no more. Heaven and earth will pass away. My words will not pass away. They shall not awake, nor be raised out of their sleep. And that is true, in a sense, until Judgment Day, with the notable exceptions of the few resurrections that have happened over history. But those people did not rise as Jesus rose. As it says in the Gospel of John, that no man hath ascended into heaven, except he that came down from heaven, the Son of Man, which is in heaven, because he's risen. He ascended into heaven in victory, as we will in the resurrection at the end of the world. But not so of Lazarus or Elijah going up, and it was not the same thing as when Jesus went up. Elijah went out to preserve his life, whereas Jesus went up in restoration of life from the dead. And as an example of what we can expect if he is our Lord, if he is our Lord, if we believe in him and trust in him, we will also rise from the dead. And that knowledge should give us the faith to be brave and to speak the truth, even if it means, if at some point could cost us our life, or also to stand up for the weak, stand up for the downtrodden, even if it costs us, because we know there's It's much better to sacrifice, the praises of the wicked of this world and to do without them than to participate with them in the blood of the innocent. Certainly. And even lesser things. Job sounds like he doesn't believe, but also in the next verse you see his hopefulness. Oh, that thou wouldest hide me in the grave, that thou wouldest keep me secret until thy wrath be past. I want to see when this is all over. You see me angry. God is angry. Man is dying. Man's days are short. God is perpetually against us. And he's saying, I wish you would just hide me in the grave until it's all over, and then appoint me a set time and remember me. And this reminds me a lot of what he says in this sentiment actually makes sense when you compare it to what he said in Isaiah. There's like that, oh, I wish you would do it like this. Thy dead men shall live together, with my dead body shall they arise. Awake and sing, ye that dwell in the dust. For thy dew is as the dew of herbs, and the earth shall cast out the dead. Come, my people, enter into thy chambers, and shut thy doors about thee. Hide thyself as it were for a little moment, until the indignation be overpast. See the idea of being hiding in your chambers, shutting the doors. He cometh out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. The earth also shall disclose her blood, and shall no more cover her slain. It's all going to come out. All the blood that was shed from the beginning of time till now. And it's going to be held to account of those that shed it. And those that stood by. And those that applauded. And those that were silent. Yeah, but I see that especially that verse 20. Oh, that you would hide me and then remember me, right? Don't remember remember the blood of the innocent. Remember your servants. So this is about. They're not going to rise. If you would only remember me, Lord, from the grave. Just when your wrath is done, remember me then. If a man dies, shall he live again? He's asking now. He's at first asserting no. And I think that's what annoys people also about the book of Job. Because God says, Job said the thing that's right. Okay, so then what? Was he, again, if you want to be literal about it, then you should obey everything. Then you should say, well, Job said there is no resurrection, so I don't believe in the resurrection. Hey. But he doesn't say there is. He asserts it from his ignorance, from his human experience. Do dead people get up and walk around? No, they don't. All right? And that's just the sort of thing like we say, well, this is what happens. From time immemorial, we still got the skeletons. We got all the bodies, except Jesus, and a couple others. We got all the bodies, all the bones. We don't necessarily have them in our possession, but they're in the ground. And the Lord knows where all the bodies are buried. That's one of the things it says. Like that idiom, he knows where all the bodies are buried. Where all the trouble, that makes a lot of, it should make crystal clear. Appoint me a set time and remember me. Nobody knows that day or that hour. But that day and that hour knoweth no man. But he will remember us. And then the dead in Christ will be raised incorruptible, and we which are alive and remain shall be changed. If a man die, shall he live again? All the days of my appointed time will I wait till my change come. Does he mean the same thing as he means like that? The change of bodies? The change of circumstance? Probably one of those. Probably change of circumstance, first of all. The guy would change something for me. Even if it's like I die and then he changes me back to being alive. I don't think that that's like out of the realm of possibility. I don't know what this word change is in particular. My change come. I'm looking it up. Khalifa, which means a change. I mean, like renewal, relief. Relief might be, I'm going to say relief, renewal. Changes of clothes, like new clothes. Change or exchange, physical change, such a change of clothes. I'll tell you what, Paul used this thing of like talking about changing the tabernacle of our flesh. This is very in keeping with the biblical idea. It is part of the, I think I would call it the idiomatic, symbolic structure of the idea of resurrection to talk about changes. Changes to my body, changes to my dead state. Change me, O Lord. I will wait. I will wait in my grave until the Lord changes me and changes things, changes back to life, renews, restores, transfers, passes on, till I truly pass on to another state of existence. I don't believe death is this automatic door to another state of existence, though you will perceive it that way. When you die, I believe the next thing you experience will be the day of judgment. There's no interim waiting. We'll all get there at the same time, is what I believe. All right? You can disagree. I hope it doesn't weigh too heavily on your mind. But just from a long time looking at the Bible and looking at all the different, because people don't like to admit that there are different points of view possible based on how you weigh the scriptures. Just like with Job here. He says things that are kind of like, what do you think about this, guys? It's in the Bible. Don't you believe in the Bible? We got to read it respecting the source material and the spirit in which it is written. Is this book trying to get us to believe there's no resurrection, or is it trying to guide us towards the thought that there is a resurrection? And I'll say that is what it's trying to do. It's trying to push us towards that conclusion. Now, Colin, I will answer thee because it's going to, of course, because of the testimony of Jesus Christ, it's embedded in the prophecies. Thou wilt call, I will answer thee from the grave. Here I am, Lazarus, come forth. There he came. Thou wilt have a desire to the work of thy hands. I'm dead, he said. I'm going to be dead, and you will have a desire to me. It's, of course, speaking of hope of resurrection, but he does not have certainty of it. That's the thing. He hopes in it, but he does not have the revelation that we have through Jesus Christ. But still, the hope is built into his discussion. God will desire you. He will bring you back from the grave. He will restore you to life, and then to life everlasting. For you number my steps. You watch over my sin. Dost thou not watch over my sin? You number my steps. You know every step I'm going to take. You watch over you know all my mistakes, my sins, my failures to hit the mark, is the real idea behind that. My transgression is sealed up in a bag. And thou sewest up mine iniquity. There was an earlier passage where sewest up was, all right? I don't know if you remember. And I don't remember exactly either, but I can reverse look it up because we have a built-in Englishman's Hebrew concordance. All right, let's see. Sewest up. I'm going to transition over there for you guys to see. Oh. Where is it? Sewest up. Sealest up in a bag. All right, to seal up is chatham, and sewest up is tafal. To seal, close up, to make an end. Ultimately, I think we're going to be looking at it from the sense of, okay, what does the idea to mean to put something in a bag? Sealeth up the stars. My transgression is sealed up in a bag. So it's not that first one. What about the second one? Tafal. To smear, plaster, attach, fabricate. Oh, yeah, this one. Or falsely attribute. Right. It was forgers of lies. Right. And then here it was, sewest up mine iniquity. Well, obviously, God does not sort of fabricate. You know what I mean? He doesn't make things up against someone. But what he's saying is, I think what he's saying here, what's the idea of this? Well, if God's got all my iniquity in a bag, that means he's got it all wrapped up, man. He's got it all together. You know what I mean? Like when I got it all right here in my bag, buddy. Oh, your iniquities. Just let me look in my bag. Let me just check Santa's secret list, so to speak. You know what I mean? That's the kind of idea. It's in his bag. You got all my sins in a bag. Yep, right here. We got all of them. Take out the trash. So it's not like that. Got my iniquity. My iniquity, you got it all bound up in the, like it's not like it's slipped. Oh, he missed one. God missed a couple. No. It's all sealed up in a bag. It's all bagged. It's all bagged and ready to go. Loaded, locked and loaded, ready to go. What he's saying is just, I'm completely at God's mercy. I'm completely in his hands. Surely the mountain falling cometh to naught. A mountain is a great big thing, but when it falls, what is it? It's nothing. The rock is moved out of his place. That which seems to be solidly in place is not so solid before the awesome might of the Lord. Waters were the stones. Thou washest away the things which grow out of the dust of the earth, and thou destroyest the hope of man. All those things which seem strong and that people try to build, they can all be washed away by things like floods or by the power of nature and by extension, God. Thou prevailest forever against him, and he passeth. Thou changeth his countenance and send him away. Man, well, God, man can never prevail against God as an overall thing. Mankind, we all come to an end. They want to prevail. They want to, go transhuman and live forever, transfer their consciousness maybe to into a computer, right? I am highly suspect of such a thing. You could probably create an AI version of someone based on their actions and talking and, But as far as causing someone to go on consciously as they were forever, nah. Not through that. Not through uploading your brain to a computer. Even then, and the scriptures get into this with the long ages of the patriarchs. Even if man could live physically, we're free from disease and all the things that kill us like that. Misadventure would eventually claim everyone just by the law of averages, just because things are that dangerous. Except with God's protection, a man alone is lost. He passes, you change his count. I think it's sort of like talking about the changing of you change the faces, right? Same faces, different faces, same story. Man, there's another man and then he gets sent away. I'm not sure what the hell that means. Let's look at that in the NIV. 1420. What do they say here? You overpower them once for all, and they are gone. You change their countenance and send them away. So, I'm not sure exactly what that means. Maybe if something will occur to me, but their face being changed. Often, our face being changed has to do with a change of circumstances, like your improved face means he lifted up his head, so to speak, and it can be also lift up your head from off your shoulders. Oftentimes words do have two meanings. Just like that sewest up in a bag did. But anyways, the things that seem to be strong are weak before God. And God prevails forever. Things change and we are sent away. We come to honor. Send him away might be a metaphor for death. And also changing the face. From a living face to a dead face, perhaps like that. His sons come to honor. With it not, obviously, because he's dead. They are brought low, but he perceiveth it not of them. But his flesh upon him shall have pain, and his soul within him shall mourn. I think during the days of his life, considering these things. Yeah, because I do. You worry about your children's future. It's natural for parents to do that. What kind of world are we going to leave to our children? It would have been nice if a lot of the parents in the last generation had thought a little more about that instead of about all their own selfish desires and cashing in and leaving us with a mountain of debt and, making sure they were well taken care of and leaving future generations a wrecked country and a massive amount of debt. I mean, it's really disgusting what's been done. And the future generations have a right to be angry at the past for squandering a great opportunity to do good. Instead they just, because we could make things better for everybody. I know that's possible. It's just people don't want to. They want to make it good for themselves. Anyways, that'll conclude our study for today. We'll pick it up with chapter 15 tomorrow. Until then, remember the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, and he is the fulfillment of the law.
The way of the just is straight, thou must abide dust way the path of the just in the way of thy judgments, Yahweh, we have waited for thee. The longing of our soul is to thy name and to the remembrance of thee. With my soul have I desired thee in the nights. Yea, with my spirit within me I will seek thee early. For when thy judgments are in the earth, the inhabitants of the world will learn righteousness.
Let favor be shown to the